Welcome to the Accelerating Operational Performance podcast. I'm Greg Schinkel, President of Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems, and I'm excited to bring you a new episode today. This episode, by the way, is brought to you by the Leader Behavior Builder, which is our feature in many of our programs where participants set a commitment to put one of their learning pieces into action, and then the system checks in with them. They do self-ratings, and you get a nice growth report at the end, and it's a feature of our Frontline Leadership program. So if you're interested at all, of course, check us out on our website at uniquedevelopment.com. I'm excited to welcome our guest today, who's actually a member of the Unique Development and Frontline Leadership family, one of our instructors. But all of our, or almost all of our instructors are actually do their own businesses as well, and they have very thriving businesses. And so my guest today is Emily Nichols, and I want to do a proper introduction, so I'm going to read her intro. Our guest today is Emily Nichols, a multi-talented engineer, keynote speaker, trainer, and event host with 2 decades of experience in the manufacturing industry. As an engineer, Emily has worked with organizations like PepsiCo, PPG, Janssen, and Henkel, improving products and processes from breakfast cereal to automotive paint and electrical steel. In fact, that was a heck of a combo product, the breakfast cereal, automotive paint, and electrical steel. You don't think they go together, but they do. Today, Emily is the president and founder of Connect Better Inc., where her focus is on restoring and rebuilding the human skills we still need in an increasingly technical world, and we're going to dig into that. Emily has her Bachelor of Science in Systems Engineering from the University of Guelph, Ontario, and a Master's of Arts and Science in Chemical Engineering from McMaster University. She summarized her master's thesis in 5 Dr. Seuss rhymes, which sounds cool. And by the way, if you want to connect with Emily, you can do it on LinkedIn, but you can also reach her on her website at connectbetter.today. Connectbetter.today. That's one of those new fancy URLs. Welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Hey, Greg, it's great to be here. I always love chatting with you.
Yes. Well, actually, Emily's been part of our team at Unique for a couple of years now. Maybe it's almost 3 years now. And we had the pleasure of onboarding together for the first time teaching one of our clients in Windsor, Ontario. So that was a highlight for me as well. I've known you through the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers as well, where you're a rock star in that association in terms of the messages that you bring. So anyway, I'm just so glad we're going to get to chat on camera and record some of this. Probably for the benefit of our audience, even though your bio kind of laid out some of the milestones, give us a little bit more of the color commentary of your journey to becoming a consultant on your own right now.
Sure. Okay. Well, Greg, I'm going to take you all the way back to like my first job, in quotation marks, because I wasn't getting paid for this, but I grew up on a family farm in Southern Ontario. And so, that was kind of the training ground for working as a team, what leadership meant, some of those early lessons I learned right in the field, hoeing soybeans. I thought, farming is too much work. So I did the logical thing and got an engineering degree.
By the way, I do have to say that, and you know this, employers just crave hiring farm kids if they could, because the work ethic is there and the willingness to do so for very little pay. I'm just kidding about the last part. But definitely they just love that people who are hard workers, who've had to work for good reasons other than just the paycheck, really make very strong character. And I know you to be of that character. So that was an important part of your early days of development.
Yeah, it really was. And, it's one of the things that is quite relatable to certain audiences. Some of our training groups, as you know, with Unique Development, they appreciate this background. So I usually like to share that. I went off and took an engineering degree. And then because of that agricultural background, I got one of my co-op semesters at Quaker Oats in Peterborough, which was part of the PepsiCo family. And between my work terms and working there full-time after graduation, I worked there for, about 5 years. And I loved that. And that's where I got my first taste of leadership on the job.
Now, it must have been, and I know you've done a fabulous TED Talk on this, but I think, isn't that maybe that wasn't the origin, but I think that was the origin of the comment and you've spoken on this, even though that's not your current focus. You've evolved since this time, but just this idea of being called like one of the guys. So without having you redo the TED talk, and people should definitely look you up on TED to hear that talk because it was amazing. And I think, wasn't it recorded in, was it in South Africa it was recorded?
I gave that talk in South Africa. You're right, but no, the TEDx was right here in
Oh,
Hamilton,
okay,
Ontario.
fair enough. So yeah, and you your hometown is Hamilton, Ontario. Can you just talk about that short, like that concept of being, like everyone says, guys, and it's, by the way, this is not meant to be like some political statement. It's just interesting how nomenclature and what's behind it. Can you just give a short answer to that one?
Yeah, you got it. My TED Talk is about the importance of gender inclusive language in the workplace. And you're absolutely right. It's not a political statement. It's not about, getting your words exactly right. It's about this idea that the words we use reinforce and shape our physical world and our interactions with one another and our company culture. So when we talk about, I need 6 guys to fill the schedule out this weekend, I need 6 guys to work overtime, I need a guy for this, I need a guy to fix this machine. It paints a picture in our minds of the kind of people who can fill those roles. Like, we don't mean to do it. It's just kind of automatic.
Yeah, and it's used, I think it's used probably by most people as a universal statement, but it is quite specific. And it's funny because you and I spoke at the same national convention, and you had done a talk on that, and then I subsequently edited my comments that I did in my keynote presentation. So you're already influencing me. And I will say that it's still a slip up because it is such a common cliche almost. But I'm more conscious of it than I ever have been. So thank you for at least raising awareness. And I know anyone who's heard your message just becomes more aware of it. Because many manufacturing companies, including a number of our clients, want to create an environment where more women want to be part of the team, and they probably just don't realize that just these little things sometimes just act as these barriers.
Yeah, they do, and they're a signal as to whether you belong or you don't belong. One of the things that I did with one of our chemical clients in Mississauga, I think it was, I remember somebody was tossing around the word guys, like, the guys in that department. And I can just, I just asked the simple question, like, the people who work in that department, are they all guys? And, it brings an awareness to the language people are using and why.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, I cut you off as you were taking us through the journey. So from Quaker Oats, continue on that path.
Oh, sure. Well, I should tell you that part of my job at Quaker Oats was delivering training, because sometimes people say, like, well, how did you go from being an engineer in factories to being a speaker? Well, speaking was always part of my job right from the very first one. I was delivering training on lean manufacturing principles and continuous improvement, and I went around to other plants and gave training. So that's kind of where the seeds of that came from. And I loved working at Quaker Oats, but I also had this sense of adventure. So when I got married, I convinced my husband we should quit our jobs and go to South America and travel around for 6 months. We had lots of amazing adventures, including one particular leadership challenge that I've talked about in many interviews, job situations, and training since then. I mean, it was just an absolute amazing adventure.
Well, do tell.
And yeah. Well, the thing is that we were working as volunteers in a disaster relief capacity, and that wasn't the point of our trip. That's something we chose to do after we arrived, so it was not planned. This was a very grassroots effort that just kind of did what they could with the skills of the volunteers who showed up. So someone who was on site before we arrived was a water resources engineer, and she was helping rehabilitate a water filtration facility at this village that was a couple hours away from the main base. And the organization we were working with, they had a policy that after 30 days of volunteering, like that you needed to take 1 day off a week, and after 30 days you needed to actually leave the project and go away for a weekend and come back, because volunteers otherwise get burnt out, right?
Yeah.
So now this water resources engineer, she needs a week off. And the organizational leaders are looking around thinking like, we need a leader for this project 2 hours away in the desert for a week. Like, who's going to do that? And so I remember they called me into the office and said, Emily, we'd like you to do this. And I said, I looked around and I said, you must be talking to somebody else. Like, no, this is not my jam. And they said, well, actually, we think maybe out of everyone here, you're the only one who can. So that really hit close to my heart because this was an important project, you know, and it needed to continue. So I said, yes, I would do that. What that meant is I took 12 volunteers with me. We took a bus 2 hours down the Pan American Highway. And then at a market, we collected all the supplies we were going to need for a week, including all the food and drinking water we were going to need. And then we hired a van to drive us the rest of the way. This was an area unserviced by buses. And then for that week, I directed this project with 12 volunteers from like 12 international volunteers that came with me, and probably another 10 or 12 local volunteers who spoke only Spanish. And I was responsible for everything, the safety, the productivity, the morale, the whole deal for the whole week. And it was like, talk about experiential learning. That was so much crammed into such a short time.
Yeah, that served you well. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, and you probably know this when we're doing our frontline leadership program, and you know, we asked the question like, were you ever nudged or told to become a leader or supervisor or put your name forward? And so this idea of being voluntold, or you know, only you really can do it. I think also that's the power of asking, and also seeing something in someone and knowing that many people, when they're asked, even if they're reluctant, they'll say okay, and then you learned a lot from that. That was a highlight experience you'll never forget.
I mean, 20 years later, I'm still talking about this 1 week, right?
Exactly.
It was huge.
Hey, by the way, I feel like if your intro ended with your thesis could be summarized in 5 Dr. Seuss words or something, you have to tell us what that is.
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to. So my master's thesis involved Quaker Oats. So even though I had left there and gone on to travel and come back to Canada and was no longer working there, I still had lots of connections there. And so I returned to McMaster University to do my master's degree in chemical engineering because I wanted to learn a specific branch of statistics that can be used to analyze manufacturing processes.
Yeah.
Some things that are really complex, that are hard to figure out, are really easy to see in the data if you know the right data analysis techniques. And so, so one of the projects, one of the applications for this technique was finding out how many oats are in the groats. So in the oat milling process, they are called oats when they come in from the field. And then after the hull is removed, what's left over is called a groat.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever eat oatmeal for breakfast, but every once in a while you might get a little piece of an oat hull in your oatmeal. It's not harmful. It's like a popcorn hull, you know, gets stuck in your teeth, maybe. Yeah. But it's not desirable.
It adds fiber.
And so it is
but it's
fiber,
not flavorful.
But it's not flavorful. Yeah. It's not desirable. And so we were using multivariate analysis of images to see how many oats were in the groats. And when you say those two words together enough times, it just seems funny and seems like it deserves a rhyme. Yeah. So I wrote a rhyme that described like the first chapter. And then after I got the next piece of my thesis done, I thought, well, I'll see if I can write a rhyme for the second one. And before you knew it, I had a rhyme for all 5 of the key sections. And when I submitted my thesis to my supervisor, I left them in because I thought this will make him laugh. And you know what? He didn't ask me to take them out, so I didn't.
There you go. Published. Awesome. and so, sorry, are you going to tell us the actual 5 words? Oats and groats I got.
Yeah, well, it's 5 whole rhymes. So
okay. So it's going to be a bit much. I got you. No, that's really cool. And it's funny that you left it in. And I think, you know, we're always looking for what's that unique twist that we can throw in that makes it a little bit different and catches people's attention. So I think that's amazing. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, when did you to me, you've always had a history of being a high achiever and a lifelong learner, but usually people in their career, they have this one thing that they got involved in. Maybe it was the trip in South America. But what was for you? When did you flip from being worried that you were an imposter, or maybe just not sure if you were really good at something, to when you go, hey, I think I got something here? When did that switch flip for you?
Well, I can think of a number of stepping stones, Greg, but since I've already told you the story of what happened in Peru, I'm going to go back to that. So think about this. I'm away in the desert for a whole week with these international volunteers and these locals. And one of the guys on my team, one of the guys, he was a guy, one of the people on my team, his name was Norm, and he was really gruff. Like when I found out that I had to take this guy with me, I was really kind of worried because you know what? He was a merchant marine, retired, doing this volunteer work. He could work harder than anybody. I thought maybe he should be leading this project instead of me. In terms of practical knowledge, his amount of practical knowledge would have far outstripped mine at this point in my life. And you know, he didn't talk much that whole week, and I felt like maybe I didn't have his buy-in. I wasn't really sure. Anyway, at the end of the week, he said, Emily, I would work for you anytime, anywhere in the world. Just call me.
Wow.
And I think, you know, that really pushed me over the edge of not feeling like an imposter anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a good example. And I mean, in one way, it's a shame that we need that extra validation, but it is just helpful to know that you're on the right track. So that's awesome. And well done for doing that work and that project. I'm wondering on the flip side whether there was a challenging assignment that didn't go as well, that maybe at the time was a bit painful, but ultimately were defined a bit by the struggles also that we go through. And I'm wondering whether you had an example of that helped shape you as well.
Yeah. Well, if there's a lesson that I keep learning in my life, it's that you can't optimize everything. And one example of learning that lesson came again when I was on an adventure. This was quite a special project. I was in between engineering jobs and working for my dad, doing a couple projects. So in this instance, my dad and I both, we were over in Europe and we needed to visit weather stations in farmers' fields in 4 different countries. And before we went, I thought, okay, this is really cool. Like I can code, I've got the skills to work out an algorithm to optimize this route. Okay, so I had pulled in the latitude and longitude of every place we needed to visit and figured out the sunrise and the sunset times. You know, it's the whole traveling salesman problem that you study in school. I was like, yes, this is so great. And I had this schedule that dictated how we could get it done the fastest, right? So that meant on every single day, we would arrive at the first station just as the sun was coming up.
Wow.
And we would leave the last station as the sun was going down. And then we would do a bunch of driving after dark and stuff. And I remember things kept going wrong. You know, we'd arrive at a place where we didn't have the right equipment, or the station wasn't where it was supposed to be, somebody had moved it, or just on and on. There were no end of headaches. And after about a week and a half of constant setbacks and constantly rerunning my optimization algorithm, I was in complete despair. Like, this is not working. We are never going to get this done. We're going to have to change our flights to come home. And I don't know. It was in a field in France somewhere. I just remember I was just kind of coming undone. And my dad was like, you know, don't worry about it. It's, you know, things don't work out. You got to do a plan B, a plan C, you know.
I was going to say he was using the farmer. He was saying, remember what it was like to be on a farm, right? Where it wasn't optimized every day and you had to just figure out what to do. Yeah.
But I think, you know, I think that's so important for folks in manufacturing, especially to remember that lesson, because we are surrounded by machines all the time. We're always focused on the KPIs, productivity, and it's really easy to get locked into that mindset of having to optimize everything, even the human aspects.
Well, let's go a little further down that path then, because you know your pivot. I mean, still women in engineering and technical roles in manufacturing, still a passion of yours, but you've really evolved your business. And again, we're talking with Emily Nichols, connectbetter.today. is her URL, which is awesome, connectbetter.today. And you've been evolving Connect Better. In fact, I thought it was interesting that you changed your company name to Connect Better. And maybe you could just walk us through some of your thinking around making sure that we inject humanity into what might always be thought of as a technical world. Can you take us down a bit of that path?
Sure. Well, when I started speaking, I really wanted to focus on technical people. Like, let's bring the humanity back into technical roles. You know, that was my background. That is what I knew. Going all the way back to Quaker Oats, that first job in manufacturing, you know, I was in that optimization mindset then, and I was always in a hurry to get from one place to another. And I can remember sitting down for maybe it was like my first performance review or something, and my boss telling me, like, you're doing really good work, but people think you're unapproachable.
Oh.
And I was like, what? Like, I'm the friendliest person I know. So that seems crazy.
But
also
a
I was
wake-up
kind of
call.
shy.
Yeah, that's a wake-up call, right? And I've heard you actually tell that example before, and I probably need to think about that too, because I share that problem.
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on doing good work. And so sometimes we lose sight of the fact that, you know, people want to interact with you as you walk by in a manufacturing or in an office. You know, you have to temper it. It can't be all interaction all the time, but there needs to be a connection there. We need to connect better with our teammates, with the people who we lead, and sometimes with ourselves. We need to connect better with ourselves, with our creative side, stay connected to our humanity. So that's really where that name came from. And as for the technical focus, I think it's human skills for a technical world. I mean, these days we're all carrying around a supercomputer in our pocket. We're using computers to run our house. We just got this amazing new robotic vacuum, and like, it is so smart, Greg. I can't believe its capabilities. And so, you know, with everything being so technical, again, it's like that optimization mindset. We're drawn into thinking about the technical aspects of it, and we need to be reminded of the human skills, the human side of things.
Well, one of our colleagues is Bob Parker, and he has a program called the Pit Crew Challenge. And he also, of course, teaches, like you do, our frontline leadership program. And, you know, one of the aspects of the Pit Crew Challenge, which is really cool with a race car and everything, is to remember that people drive processes, not the other way around. Because I think we become, let's just optimize the process. And there's probably millions, I'm not even exaggerating, millions of examples where somebody thought that the technical problem was technical and it was actually human oriented. By the way, I wanted to link back to your comment about like walking through the plant and whether you say hello or not. And one of the little, you know, I mean it to be humorous, but I say, if you really want to disturb your team, walk through the department, hold a clipboard, have a frowny face on, and when you make eye contact, put a little X on your clipboard, and just see how that changes the mood and attitude of the group, you know, within 20 minutes. So I think, you know, the flip side of that is always remember that there's human beings involved. And honestly, if human beings don't feel engaged and involved in the work, they will probably find, not on purpose, they won't sabotage usually, but they'll just find ways to not really be excited about moving things forward, right?
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes manufacturing work is boring. And so you need to build that excitement and that connection in. And I feel like that's something I've been doing since I was, you know, tall enough to go into the field with my dad. It's like, how do you make a boring job more exciting?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why our audiences love you too. And I know, I think it always maybe would surprise our clients to know that whoever, you know, you're working with from our team becomes your favorite, but I know some people have you as their favorite, and there's good reason for it, because you just have this neat way of bringing your whole self passionately to the subject matter. Now, one of the things that caught my attention, and you were taking this back to, you know, again, a comment that Bob Parker made on his episode around the different preferences for learning, but also, you know, this idea of making things visual. And you have this new program, it's called Dare to Draw. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, you know, it's actually not that new, but I haven't done a great job of talking about it. Dare to Draw, visual language for leaders. Now, Greg, tell me, can you draw?
I've learned to say that, of course, I can draw, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself very good at drawing right now.
All right, you've learned to say, of course, you can draw. Interesting choice of words. So in an audience of adults, generally speaking, if you ask this question, most people will say, no, I can't
No,
draw, or I can't draw
agree.
well.
I would agree. By the way,
Yeah.
I think I haven't heard you talk about this, but I've heard somebody else talk about it and say everyone can draw. It's just maybe you don't feel like you can draw well, but I would agree that adults probably tend to be dismissive of things that they're not very good at and say, I don't do that or I can't do that. That's like saying, do you breathe? Of course, you breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a very good reason why most adults will say they can't draw. And it has to do with the comparison they're making, right? Most of us, if we get asked if we can draw, we're thinking about, can we draw it realistically? That's not the right question.
Yeah.
We should be asking
Well, yeah,
ourselves.
we're picturing Bob Ross on PBS, drawing and thinking, I'm not a Bob Ross, or I've been to the
Yes.
Louvre, and I'm definitely not like a drawer. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not the right comparison. I mean, in leadership, using visuals is another way to get our point across, right? So it's not about whether we can draw it realistically. It's about whether we can draw something well enough that it's recognized so that we can make a point.
Good. Then all my work with models says that I can draw because I draw models. Yay. I'm an artist,
Yes.
everybody.
Well, and the great thing is you mentioned that year at the CAPS convention where we were both on the main stage, and in your presentation you drew in real time, and it was really, really effective. Hey, I've seen the feedback. You got a lot of good feedback from that presentation, and that's because you not only had visuals, but you drew in real time. So you could have put up a PowerPoint slide that had all the things pre-drawn, but this goes to the heart of my program. It's not the drawing that matters. It's the drawing that matters. So one of those is a noun.
I like a turn of language on that. It's not the drawing that matters. It's the drawing that matters. You'll have to explain it. But I did want to give credit because I picked up the models method from Simon Bowen from Australia. And certainly he's a big proponent. And you're right that the art of drawing in front of someone makes them feel like you're doing it just for them. Almost like when you go and get a caricature drawn of yourself and you're watching them do the sketch at the moment. There's just something about like the real time of scribbling it on a napkin or on a whiteboard that just makes it far more captivating than seeing the finished product. But I digress.
No, you're exactly right. That is so great. There's something about seeing it in real time, but it doesn't have to be fresh every time, right? That wasn't the first time that you were drawing those drawings on the stage in front of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers.
Right.
Those were probably things you'd drawn many times before, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so what that means is we can build up a catalog of useful symbols and shapes that we can use over and over again. And that's what this program is about. It's not about turning you into a fine artist. It's about giving you the skills and confidence to be able to go up to a whiteboard or a flip chart and put something up there that isn't just words or numbers. And you start to build your library of little things you can draw, and then you can add to it so that you can draw more abstract things like teamwork and things you want to communicate to the folks who work with.
Yeah, so actually, I probably introduced this topic using the wrong reference back to Bob Parker's episode. You're really talking about it being an experiential sort of exercise where you're helping people essentially discover it by doing the thing.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. But there are so many parallels. I mean, I listened to that Bob Parker episode again last night. And I mean, there's just so many parallels because you talked about the difference between childlike and childish, right? Mm-hmm. Some people might think like, oh, you're going to get me to scribble with scented markers on large scale paper in front of my colleagues. I don't know. That sounds childish, but actually it's not. It's childlike. It's that thing that lets people let go of their ego. They get to realize in the first 10 minutes of the program that there's a very good reason why they think they can't draw. And then we can spend the rest of the time building up the skills again, starting with scribbling.
Yeah. So one of the things, this is a nice little segue into something that I know impressed all of our team when we heard about it. We haven't yet piled into a car to come and see you perform yet. But, for a person of your vintage, and I mean you're still a very young person, but you're not exactly in your 20s, let's say. So I noticed that you decided to get into performing live music in front of people, including singing, and it's like that seems so like. I've been working up, and so is Ted Besner, who's another one of our instructors. I think there is this time when I will go and do a set at a stand-up, like an open mic or something, but it's still like, there's one thing to say I might do it someday, and then you're actually doing it. Can you just tell us, like, what was it that even made you have that idea, and then being willing to go do it, and now you're playing gigs?
Oh, well, it came back to a Toastmasters meeting. What a strange place to start. But the question of the day was, if you had to wake up and listen to the same song every single day for the rest of your life, like as you wake up, hear the same song, what would it be? And I thought, well, I could say the name of the song, but it's just much more effective if I sing a line. And so after the meeting, one of the other folks in the group came up to me and said, there's a few of us that get together on Friday nights and play music. Maybe you'd like to join us. And so that's how it got started. But how it turned into a legit thing, a thing where we go out and play actual gigs, was just kind of like following the joy, I would say. This comes back to my message about bringing your creativity and your humanity, bringing your whole self to work. Like, this was really just, it was fun. And I play not with the whole group, but as an acoustic duo. So just me and one other person.
Wow.
That's what we're putting out there in the world. And we're just a really great partnership. So, as we talk about teamwork and leadership, one of the reasons it's gone as far as it has is that we're a great team. We have complementary skills. We have great communication with each other. We have similar goals. By the way, I think you should do the stand-up comedy, and I want to come and see it. I did stand-up comedy too a couple of years ago, and it was really.
How many minutes did you do?
10 I think minutes? My final set was about 6 minutes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, people don't realize that to do a stand-up, I'm just keeping a series of notes and funny observations that. But I think one of the advantages we have when you're used to being a professional speaker is it won't be quite as intimidating to step on stage. Whether you can actually deliver the lines the way that you want, or that they'll even be funny, I guess that will be up to the audience. But I think what it's great, and I think people are picking it up just watching you and hearing you on the podcast. Remember, everybody, this is on YouTube and also on obviously the podcasting audio apps. Is just the energy that you bring, and the enthusiasm and the creativity. It's how you can take our course, which is already, I'd say, well designed, but you really bring it to life with your personality. And again, I think people probably are just stunned that there's someone who has their master's in engineering and also studied quantitative analysis is as bubbly and as lively as you are. So thank you first of all for bringing that to the work that you do with us and with others. I'm wondering if there's a lesson that you, knowing that you teach leadership with us and even with some of your own clients as well, is there a leadership lesson that you wish people could take away with them? Just something a bit different to think about as a leader?
I don't know if it's a lesson so much as an attitude, and it's something that I think you exude, which I'm always learning from you and from others. It's, you've got to take the work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And I know that one of the things you've said to me about the training, I've heard you say this to some of our classes as well, is like, the first goal is don't suck. So much training sucks, right? I mean. And so the great thing there is, like, you're taking the work seriously, but you also understand, like, where it fits in the bigger picture. Like, it's a big deal and it's not a big deal. It's serious and it's not the end of the world. It's fun and it matters. That's a lesson I think people need more. It's a message people need to hear more often, and I want to bring that to the world.
Yeah, thank you. I always say I have this strange dual personality in a way, and this like goofball and pretty intense about certain things, but you're right. It's sort of in my philosophy that we're kind of all figuring it out as we go, and you're at different stages and different things. But I love that you try new things, that you're willing to try new things, and you bring that that discovery process when you're teaching as well. So again, if people want to reach out to you, Emily, they can do that. Obviously, they can search you on LinkedIn, Emily Nichols with one L at the end, and also connectbetter.today. Connectbetter.today. And Emily is just one of our amazing faculty members, and I just appreciate you coming on the podcast to share some of your wisdom and enthusiasm with us.
It's always a great chat when we get together. Can't wait to do it again.
All right. So thank you for listening and watching the podcast. Remember, it's on YouTube as well, or it's on all the major podcasting apps. One of the things that you probably hear if you listen to other podcasts, which chances are we're not the only one, is the importance of liking and subscribing to things. So I know we've got 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. What really helps in the podcasting apps, if people give a 4 or 5 star review, or even better, forwarding an episode to someone who you know would benefit from it. So hopefully you can help us get the message out for our podcast. And again, if we can be of any assistance to you or your team to bring people like Emily into your organization to deliver the kind of rock star performance on our Frontline Leadership Program or our new Site Leader Excellence Program, reach out to us. Let's just have a conversation at uniquedevelopment.com. For now, I'll just say best wishes to you as you develop on your leadership journey.